Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Dr. Nurul Aini and fellow friends. So today, me and my group mates from Group 4 will be presenting our poster with the title Principle versus Egocentric. So I'll pass the presentation to Ray.
Hello everyone, we start off with introduction. Johan is a final year student in chemical engineering. He went back to his village and is expected to have a new job as soon as possible. However, the only option of a position available operates with chemical pesticides, which has put him in a terrible dilemma. He is in a severe predicament whether to accept the job and disregard his family's principle or to lose the only vacant position available at the time being. Our preliminary decision is to decline the job offer as it poses more harm than benefit. Moving on to similar case. To the introduction, Kirsten Bruller, a vegan graphic designer, faced numerous ethical concerns when it comes to working with clients from milk and dairy industries. She knew that the job does not meet her ethical and moral interests and does not go together with her personal beliefs. Kirsten realized that she would be generally dishonest to herself if she accepted the job regardless of the money offered. So that is all from me. I'll pass it to Wani for tests.
Thank you, Ray. Moving on to the first test is the harm test. We have the four parties affected by the issue. Firstly is Johan himself, in which the issue would affect his occupation and family ties. Firstly, if he were to decline the job, it would make it hard for him to find another job, as we know at the time that was the only vacant job available. But if he were to accept the job, he would be able to secure the opportunity of employment. However, there would be internal conflicts with his family about his job due to their opposing beliefs. Next, we have Johan's family, or more so, Johan's family's honor or reputation as farmers who avoid the use of pesticide. If Johan were to decline the job, this reputation would of course persist, but if he were to accept the job, his family would receive criticism from villagers. Next is plants. Here we don't just refer to any random plant, but more so towards plants that are directly involved with Johan himself, in which if Johan declined the job, it means Johan would ensure the plants that he grows without pesticide would have a healthier growth rate and also normal production rate. But if he were to accept the job, this means Johan would involve himself in using pesticides to grow crops to ensure higher yields, but the crops themselves would have pesticide residue. Lastly, for environment, if Johan were to decline the job, Johan would be able to avoid the contributing to water and soil contamination due to the use of pesticide. If Johan accepts the job, he would be involving himself in activities that would contaminate soil, water, turf, and other vegetation that would henceforth lead to destruction of the natural biodiversity. That's all for harm tests. We move on to our faith test. In Islam, in the Quran chapter 7, ayat 257, we can see Allah has urged all that is righteous, forbidden all that is bad, allowed every clean thing, and prohibited every dirty or harmful thing. In this case, we can see Islam would pursue Johan to decline the job, as accepting the job would bring more harm than benefits. Next, in Buddhism, they emphasize on performing selfless actions with an attitude that is not influenced by one's likes and dislikes. Therefore, in Johan's case, it would best for him to take a more rational approach on the issue, in which at the time he had missed out on other job opportunities. It would be most rational for him to accept the job to secure a stable income in the future, despite his personal beliefs. Lastly, in Buddhism, there's a sutta that calls out for men to live forgetting desires and to pursue virtues. Thus, this means that in any decision making, men must weigh the adversity using their knowledge. Therefore, Johann should use his knowledge that he had obtained from his course, from his family, and also his personal belief that using pesticide does bring more harm than benefit, not only to the plant but also to the surrounding and consumers of the crops themselves. Therefore, it would be better for Johann to refuse the job than accepting it. That's all for the two tests. I now pass on to Amaline for the next two tests.
So next, we're going to move on to publicity test. This decision should be publicized because the public should be aware that exposure to pesticides can have effects that are acute, chronic, and also long-term. Some people are more vulnerable than others to pesticides' impacts. For instance, infants and young children are known to be more susceptible than adults to the toxic effects of pesticides. Farm workers and pesticide applicators especially are also more vulnerable because they receive greater exposures as they are the one who makes, load, transport, and apply formulated pesticides. The public should accept this decision because all of the pesticides are biocides, which normally implies a high toxicity for humans, which has been a cause for concern due to the widespread and indiscriminate use of these products. So we're going to move on to professional tests. Before I explain more about this, I would like to highlight that pesticides are used above all to combat pests because of their effect on harvests. In Malaysia, the use of pesticides has been relatively prevalent since over a century ago. For that, it is noted that most of the acts governing with pesticides do not specifically restrict its usage in agriculture industries. The principal legislation for the control of pesticides in Malaysia is the Pesticides Act of 1974. In this Pesticides Act 1974, there are many parts, but here we highlighted 3 of them. The primary intent of this act is the control of the manufacture and import of pesticides through registration. Other aspects of control include the licensing of premises selling pesticides, storing them for sale, the proper labeling of pesticide, and management of the cases of accident, death, or personal injury relating to pesticides. However, it is a matter of further concern that poisoning cases due to pesticides have not been well documented, even though such incidents do occur. For examples, in Tanjung Karang, a paddy growing area, 72% of rice farmers experience poisoning symptoms when handling pesticides, and proper clothing, goggles, shoes, and respiratory masks were seldom worn. This seems to indicate that there is an insufficiency of educational materials, information on safety, and also an apparent lack of caution in the handling of pesticides, even though the Pesticides Act 1974 has clearly obliged the use of these chemical pesticides in a proper manner. So we'll go back to Ray.
All right, thank you, Amaline. So we have reached the end where we reach the conclusion. It is clear as day that even though the job offer is great, it brings more harm than good towards nature and humanity itself because of the dangerous chemicals that prove adverse effects towards the ecosystem. Not only that, stated by religions that the usage of such pesticides is injustice towards the environment. However, the professional test conducted that does not support our preliminary decision, but the poisoning cases clearly depict that these uses will cause detrimental harm than good. Thus, it is better for Johann to reject the offer as a selfless person that contributes to society and nature as a whole. So we move on with the last point, which is acknowledgement. We would like to express our utmost gratitude to all of our lecturers in the course of ethics and safety for guiding and teaching us throughout the whole semester. We also want to thank Dr. Nurul Aini binti Abu Shamsi for her valuable comments, suggestions, and assistance during the preparation of this PBL project. We'll make sure to deliberately make use of the knowledge gained in this course for future purposes. So that is all for Group 4. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Okay.